With me, Josh Frydenberg and Ed Husic. Gentlemen, the Prime Minister saying that these children will be treated like the children of any other criminal. Obviously a very, very complex situation if these young people are to be brought back into Australia, given how brutalised they would be.
Yeah, and it's a very sad situation because clearly those children have been taken to the Middle East, where they've been exposed to horrific crimes, and that's going to affect them greatly in the years ahead. So we have to think about the children. But what the Prime Minister has done in his announcement yesterday around citizenship is basically underline that Australia needs to do more than what we've already done to ensure that our community is protected, because the scale of the problem is very significant, Kieran, and we have more than 100 Australians who are over there fighting in Iraq and Syria, another 150 who are here in Australia providing support, whether it's financing or recruiting, and then the ASIO tell us that they have 400 high-priority terrorism-related investigations, and the terrorism alert here in Australia is high, which means that a terrorist attack is likely. So we do not want to understate the significance of this challenge, and it has to be said there's been important bipartisan support on the various tranches of legislation that we've already passed through the Parliament.
And I know there was the debate about the rule of law and so on in the Cabinet, and I'll get to your thoughts on that in a moment. But first to Ed Husic on, and I guess the way I'll put it to you, Ed, this morning is that a senior Liberal told me recently that regardless of how far the Prime Minister goes on this issue of national security, particularly in the wake of the Lindt cafe siege, the view in the electorate is they want him to go further. That while we might have this debate about the rule of law and citizenship and so on, that the view in the broader electorate is go as hard as you can, and as far as he's gone, they'd like him to go even further.
I think people want to be secure, they want to be safe, and they want anything that government does do to be effective. I think these are the three areas that we need to focus on. And when you're dealing with people as heinous and truly awful as Daesh are, and what they do seek to do, they don't seek to actually enable people to do good things in their lives. They're using people as pawns in a broader game or a power struggle, and they don't care what ends they use, they don't care how barbarous they are to achieve what they want. So we're dealing with some pretty evil people, and you obviously need to take some strong measures. So we've certainly said to the government we're more than happy to, and believe it's important for all of us to work together in terms of providing that safety and security I mentioned earlier. Want to make sure too that in some of the changes that have been announced that they're effective in terms of what's been announced with citizenship, and recognising too within international law there are issues with the way in which you do certain things that render people stateless, so we have to be mindful obviously of that. But we need to take the hard and effective line to ensure that people in our community can continue to live their lives the way that they rightly expect, and that is safely.
Is safely and securely, as he says. But the thing is, Josh Frydenberg, to you, someone who's well versed on international norms as well, and as a global citizen, is it appropriate that we simply export a terrorist problem to another country?
Well, we're not seeking to export our problems.
That's what we'd be doing, isn't it? If you have a dual national who's here sympathising with a terrorist group, you strip them of their citizenship, deport them to that other country, we're exporting the problem.
Well, 2 points. The first is what we are proposing to do here in Australia is actually on par with what a number of like jurisdictions, the United Kingdom, the United States, France and others already have laws to do, which is to strip dual nationals of their citizenship where they have been involved in terrorism offences, and dare I say it, there's also an element of judicial review there against a minister's decision. The second point is we are not going down the path of making anybody stateless. The Prime Minister has made that clear in his press conference. What he wants to do, though, is to start a broader conversation about the rights and responsibilities of citizenship, and to see whether we need to be doing more to make people aware of their obligations under when they're a citizen.
But when you say this about the statelessness thing, if the government, the Prime Minister says he's open to the idea, and this was the subject of debate in Cabinet a couple of nights ago, which caused some concern from Cabinet ministers who raised their issues with this at the time. But I guess the question is that most people in the electorate, or a lot of people, would think, good riddance. Take their citizenship, get rid of them, and if they're stateless, well, bad luck.
Well, we have international obligations around, not making somebody a stateless.
But the Brits do, don't they, effectively?
No,
by their law?
What they do say is that if you are a British citizen, but you are entitled to become a citizen of another country, then you can lose your British citizenship. Now, the Prime Minister has said he wants Connie Ferranti-Wells and Philip Ruddock, two people who are well respected in migrant communities, to go out as his envoys, to go out as the Parliamentary Secretary now to the Attorney General in Connie's case, and speak to the communities and get a better understanding of what may be new measures.
But in terms of Islamic State, Ed Hughes, if they're there and they believe it's a caliphate, they believe it's a state, and they're Australian citizens, I guess the question that a lot of our viewers would be asking is, why not strip them of their citizenship? If they think it's a state, well, let them stay there.
We've had provisions within our existing laws that deal with the fact that if you go and join a foreign power or another military force, that puts you outside the bounds of citizenship and you get dealt with accordingly.
If they are at war with Australia.
Sure.
That's the criteria.
But given what Daesh has been saying, we can, they are not following the norms and usual procedures of the way these things are conducted. They have said that, basically, Western civilisation, you're on notice. And so there is that. But I think I want to come to another point, Kieran, which is, so we need to obviously take a very strong line on those people that want to leave Australia to side with a group that is doing terrible things to other people, regardless of religion. They are doing it to Christians, to Muslims, to Jews. Regardless, they are enacting that barbarity, right? And we've said,
including their own Sunni Muslims.
Exactly. And if you're prepared to sign up with that, there are consequences on it. But there is another important element to this, and that is to remove this sense that there is division, that people feel that because of who they are, that they're excluded within Australian society, which is simply not the case, because Australia is very accommodating and allows people to seize their own opportunity to do well in their lives. I think the type of things that the government has said in terms of de-radicalisation and seeing what other countries like Germany have been able to achieve in doing this, I think is really important, and I'm certainly very supportive of the type of announcements that Julie Bishop has raised. I think the quicker this happens, the better. 1.4 million, I think, has been assigned to 34 groups to do this work. We've got to keep doing this. We've got to keep working on it. This is a complex problem that requires a number of different avenues to deal with it, and certainly on that element, I think that's got to, we've got to fast track it, got to get moving on it and make this very effective.
I think Ed makes a very good point there, which is community harmony is paramount here. Right,
but it's being strained, isn't it?
It is being strained, sure.
Including by women wearing hijabs, being abused on public transport and so on. We're seeing reports of that quite regularly now.
Kieran, that is completely unacceptable, and I saw, reports of that.
It is unacceptable. It absolutely is unacceptable, but I guess given all the rhetoric and the language around national security and all of the prism in which we're having this debate in the first place, isn't that the result? Unless we talk about that harmony parallel to it right throughout?
I actually think the language from both sides of the Parliament have been actually quite measured here. I mean, the Prime Minister would be derelict in his duty if he didn't tell the Australian people how it is in relation to the radicalisation of some Australians. If he didn't actually say that we have a terrorist threat which is high in Australia on the advice of our security agencies, which where up to 30 Australians have already been killed, including some who have been suicide bombers, and that hundreds are involved either over there or supporting them. He would be derelict in his duty if he didn't come clean with the Australian people about that. So he's done that. Now, this level of community engagement which Ed refers to, I think around $40 million has actually been provided. Now, we've also beefed up our security agencies as well and our law enforcement agencies. But we really have to re-emphasise that everybody who takes their oath of citizenship in this country is an Australian citizen and as good an Australian citizen as the next person. That's absolutely important. I mean, when you look at some of the great Australians, I mean, they've been born overseas. You know, you can, and someone like Victor Chang, I remember when he was the Australian of the Year, tragically killed. I mean, of Chinese background. The Australian of the Year, the Australian newspaper's Australian of the Year this year was a man, Mr. Jamafi, who's, you know, from a Muslim background. We think of Sir John Monash, of Prussian, German, Jewish background. I mean, we are a wonderful country with tolerance, multiculturalism and diversity. That's our strength.
Well,
but this is a threat that we face, and therefore we need to react in a considered and proportionate manner.
And when we go to citizenship ceremonies, we do hear the pledge that's given, or that is, you know, pledged to be followed by people who become citizens to respect and uphold the laws of the land.
Correct.
So that's there. And to understand that we're brought from all different backgrounds to work together. And this is the important point about, in terms of the de-radicalisation elements of it and the community harmony elements, is that this is a problem requiring all of us to work together, and we need to find ways to bind people together. The 1.4 is the first round. You're right, there is 40 million. It's the first round that Mr Bishop just announced, and which I think is really important. But again, yeah, we do. You're absolutely right, Josh. I mean, when we go to those citizenship ceremonies and you see how much people value, their families are so happy that they have now been accepted in a second home, that is a spirit and energy we need to seize upon to build a stronger community.
Okay, gents, let's take a break. Back in just a moment.
Introducing the new look Toyota Camry. Redesigned and better than ever. With the latest technology and safety features. And refined comfort throughout. It's made for the everyday hero. Starting from $28,990 drive away.
Do you read me, Agent Silver Fox?
Roger that, Mr. Alexander.
Mission is go. We need to find out why Australians still come to our website looking for good health insurance deals.
So, as health insurance experts, we can help customers find a better deal from our range of leading health funds.
That's it, Sergey. Mission is accomplished. Please, buy health insurance from Compare the Market. Simple.
At NAB, we back businesses that back themselves. That's why we're committed to lending $1 billion a month. More yes for business, less missed opportunities. Call 13 10 12. NAB.
At Masters, you can shop online and collect in store. We call it click and collect. How good is that? That's why Masters is Australia's fastest growing hardware store.
Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue,
and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true.
Dream, plan, book. Expedia, your somewhere starts here.
We move more than ever before. We don't sit still, except when it comes to our super. So come on, Australia, let's get our super moving too. Kinetic Super. Get your super moving.
Holden understands Australian conditions better than any other car company. This is the turny test. This is the rainy test. This is the dusty test. Now that's dusty. Let's go there.
Can your payment terminal split bills, help you count, and take payments from anywhere? Meet the EFTPOS tablet that can do all that and more. Technology to keep your business moving? CommBank can.
This is AM Agenda. With me this morning, Josh Frydenberg and Ed Husick, who were just before before he came back on air, engaging in a bit of banter, complimenting him. Do you want to repeat that?
No, he doesn't want to at all.
I don't want to hurt his career prospects.
All your Treasury people have enough problems as it is. I don't want to contribute to it.
Let's talk about the government's economic message, where the Prime Minister's got no concerns about that, the consistency of it, given he's out at the Small Business today and Fish Week, and the Treasurer on Monday night raising the prospect of removing the GST on tampons, which caused quite a bit of a distraction yesterday.
You guys have consistency on economic message? Is that on breaking news now? Is that on the bottom of the screen?
Absolutely. We've actually not only got consistency, we've got the record on it, on the economic side of the debate at the moment. So look, in relation to this issue of the GST on tampons, as the Treasurer said on Q&A, and I was watching it like many other Australians, it's an issue that's been raised with him numerous times. But the GST and all its revenue goes to the states. So he said he was happy to raise the issue with the states. He has asked Treasury to actually cost what the implications would be for removing the GST from tampons.
The Prime Minister says that the government's got no enthusiasm to pursue it. So why is the Treasurer doing it?
Well, the Prime Minister to actually what he actually said was that the states are the ones.
Is this your Boutros Frydenberg moment? Will you reconcile the PM and the Treasurer?
The states are the ones who make that final decision, and the states are the ones who need to have that discussion. And look, I was sitting alongside the Treasurer earlier this year at a meeting of the state treasurers, which the federal Treasurer chaired, and it's not easy to get them to agree on much. So
this is not going to happen.
Yes, but they seem to be agreeing on this. They're ready to work. Like you just said. Treasurer Hockey said that he'll refer it to the states, and the states thought about it, and they went, "Yeah, okay, we'll do it." That's what they've been saying the last 24 hours.
About the economic debate should be about. This is all a distraction. Surely the key argument is, if either side of politics had the medal, is about the GST broadening the base. You talk to any economist, and that's what they say.
I'm trying to tease him. Why are you interrupting?
Because I want to be serious for a change.
Because, Kieran, can I just say, you raise a good point, because
every economist says that. Every time he agrees with you, say that.
In the tax discussion paper, which we released earlier this year, when it came to the GST, it said two things. The first thing it said was that the 10% rate in Australia was about half of where the OECD average is.
But you're not talking about broadening the base.
And the second thing,
no one is.
But the second thing it said was that actually the GST in Australia only covers less than 50% of our goods and services.
Why don't you change it?
Well, as the Prime Minister has said, we would need both Bill Shorten and our side of the House to agree. Well, it's the reality.
But very few people, I think Dan T and maybe one or two others are saying the reality here, what most economists, Saul Westlake, any economist of worth their salt, says that we need to broaden the base.
But this is not a debate we're about to open.
I know, obviously we're not, because Labor's backing you in reducing it now through
we're having a broader discussion about tax reform in this country. Yeah. We've got a long runway.
You've ruled that out. Next election. A lot of economists are banging their head against the wall. What do you think about this sanitary product idea?
Well, what we said is that certainly, like if the states are agreeable, as they have, and I'm just going to come back to the point, I saw comments from Jackie Trade in Queensland, I saw comments from Tom Koutsantonis, and Andrew Barr, Chief Minister here in the ACT, saying they're prepared to do it. And in return for that, if they needed to make up the revenue, Bill Shorten, as you heard in his first question to the Prime Minister yesterday, said, we'll find other measures to help counterbalance the revenue that would be written off on this measure. So we're prepared to work, with you guys on this. The states are prepared to work on it. But
you want to change the GST now?
The bigger issue is, don't interrupt me when I'm making a point. When do I do that to you?
Sorry.
A lot.
Thank you. But the bigger issue is that you give Joe Hockey 5 minutes and he stuffs it up. This is the problem. Everyone's lauding the budget. They had a long run up to that. They had to get it right. The pressure was on. The issue is whenever he's got clear air and he's got to actually do something smart, he flubs it. And he's done it on this.
He did a great job on Q&A.
Oh, no, well, he's done a great job. In the last 24 hours, he's had to move his position from what he said in Q&A to the very next day.
Let's look at the same-sex marriage issue, and Bill Shorten looking to preempt or preclude a fight at the Labor conference by bringing it on Monday. Is this the way to deal with this? An issue of great importance to a lot of people, and it seems he just wants to avoid a fight at National Conference by bringing this on this Monday.
I don't see that at all, because we've had quite a number of people, and in my case, I've changed my position in relation to marriage equality. A number of us have gone, well, okay, this is the time to consider it. We've had obviously what's happened in Ireland over the last few days, where they've voted resoundingly for marriage equality.
But Tanya Plibersek wants a binding vote. This morning she wouldn't repeat that. She wouldn't even repeat that to questions.
Well, I think it's become less of an issue on our side, because you've seen the strength of conviction on our side to take a vote that would support marriage equality in this country, and certainly there are a number of others, and Josh here has actually, well before me, expressed a view in relation or in favour of marriage equality, and there are a number of Liberals, senior and backbench, that are saying that it should go to a conscience vote. I think there is a view within parliamentarians that they certainly recognise this is a reform that's long overdue and should be acted upon.
Look, it's hard not to be cynical about Bill Shorten's timing in relation to this. I mean, as a number of my coalition colleagues who strongly support gay marriage have said, they wanted to have a considered debate. They wanted to enter into discussions with the other side. Our party room will look at any legislation that comes before it and decide whether to have a binding vote or a conscience vote. I've strongly supported a conscience vote, but there's no doubt that the vote in Ireland, which had a 62% vote in favour, means that there are now 20 countries in the world where they have gay marriage on the statute books, and 37 American states. So you can see...
If there is a conscience vote, do you think that there'd be a majority in your party back it?
Hard to know. It would turn a lot on, I think, the specifics of the bill, because nobody wants to see religious institutions compelled to sanctify a gay marriage if that's not what they want to do. And so there would need to be some subtleties in terms of the legislation, but certainly a growing number of my colleagues who do believe in gay marriage.
This wasn't Bill Shorten trying to be a bit populist and get ahead of the Labor conference, where the expectation was that he would have a tough time against Tanya Plibersek's motion to have a binding vote as opposed to a conscience vote. It seemed like an own goal.
Two things. I genuinely believe that when you look at the way in which, particularly within our party, within the federal parliamentary level, people have expressed a view that they support reform. I can't see that in the way that you've expressed it, Kieran. But the second thing is, Josh, your side of politics said that you would have a discussion on this within the party room, midway through. We're literally there. We've had on the world stage, and even our nearest neighbours in New Zealand have taken a position on this.
We don't have a bill before the party room.
But why does it require a bill?
Because the details are important.
All right,
to
gents,
a number of my colleagues.
we're over time, unfortunately. Ed Husic, Josh Frydenberg, have a good day. Quick break, back in just a moment.